Hello everyone, welcome to Scientica. Today we'll discuss about mitochondria. So mitochondria is an important cell organelle which is present both in plant cell and animal cell. Mitochondria was first observed by Albert von Kolliker, and he observed it as granules in the muscle cell. So this is how the mitochondria looks like. Later on in 1897, C. Benda named this organelle as mitochondria. Now mitochondria looks like a round tube-like cell organelle. So this is how the shape of mitochondria like. This is just looking like a round tube-like cell organelle. So mitochondria is a double membrane structure. It has two membranes. The first one is the outer membrane. Now the outer membrane is much smoother, whereas the second membrane, which is the inner membrane, has the finger-like projections like this. And these projections are what you call as the cristae. So these are the inner foldings of the inner membrane, which are called as the cristae. Okay, however, when we talk about the outer membrane which is present outside, it is much smoother as compared to the inner membrane. So this is just a continuous membrane which is present outside the inner membrane, which you call as the outer membrane. Okay. Next is, let us see more structures which are present in the mitochondria. The first one, outer membrane. Then we also have the outer chamber. Now, outer chamber is the space which is, just adjacent to the outer membrane and outside the inner membrane. So, the space which is present just adjacent to the outer membrane is what you call as the outer chamber. Next is the inner membrane, which is present inside, and the space which is present inside the inner membrane is what you call as the inner chamber. Inside the inner chamber, we have seen that the inner membrane is folded into finger-like projections which are called as cristae, like this. It is folded inside. And also the inner chamber is filled with a gel-like proteinaceous substance which is called as the matrix. So this is the matrix which fills up the inner chamber of mitochondria. Mitochondrial DNA is present inside the matrix. So this is basically like a circular DNA which is more resembling the prokaryotes. And this is moreover a circular kind of a DNA which is present inside the mitochondria. This is also sometimes written as empty DNA, which is mitochondrial DNA. Apart from mitochondria, ribosomes are also present inside the mitochondrial matrix. And we also have a structure which is called as porins, which are the pore-like structure present on the outer membrane of the mitochondria. So these are the pore which are present on the outside of the outer membrane. So these are called as the porins. Now, an important function of mitochondria is the powerhouse. Now, what is a powerhouse? We all know that powerhouse is something which is supplying electricity, or I can say supplying energy to our homes. Yes. So similarly, mitochondria is also supplying energy for various purposes or for various functions which cells are performing. So therefore, we call mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell because it is supplying energy in the form of ATP molecules to the cell. Now, what is this ATP? ATP is adenosine triphosphate, and this is a form of energy which is being supplied by mitochondria to the cells so that the cell can perform various functions like metabolism inside them. So various metabolic activities inside the cell is being fulfilled by the ATP or the energy which is supplied in the form of ATP to these cells. Now, how do organisms are using this ATP for? Organisms are synthesizing various chemical compounds with the help of this ATP. So various anabolic reactions happening inside the cell is because of the ATP which is supplied by the mitochondria. The second function is movement, locomotion, or peristalsis. So whatever movement our body is doing, the muscles are doing a lot of movement, plus internal organs like esophagus. And the other organs are also doing various movements inside the body. And that movement is being facilitated or being helped by the ATP or the energy molecules which are provided by mitochondria. Movement of cilia and flagella. Now, cilia and flagella are the locomotory organs in the lower organisms, like we've seen in bacteria, protists. So, they are moving with the help of cilia and flagellas. So, these are also helping in locomotion for lower organisms. Conduction of nerve impulses also require energy in our body, and that is being provided by ATP supplied by mitochondria. Heat generation and regulation inside the body is also being done by mitochondria in the body. So this function is also important, which requires ATP, which is being supplied by or which is being produced by mitochondria. So these are the important uses of the ATP or adenosine triphosphate molecule, which is a form of energy which is produced by mitochondria. Our body has various functions actually to perform, and this is how the ATP is being used for such like functions in the body. Now, let us understand why do we call mitochondria as self-autonomous. Now, what is the meaning of this term autonomy? Autonomy means independence. So this mitochondria is basically independent of the cell nucleus and the other cell organelles. Now let us see how. The first point says it forms the new mitochondria. So this explains that the new mitochondria develops from the pre-existing mitochondria only. So as if we have this mitochondria which is present in the cell, it has the ability to produce the new mitochondria. So this can therefore be called as the mitochondria developed from the pre-existing mitochondria. Second point is growth. Now, the mitochondria basically, if it is a small mitochondria, it is going to be, developing inside. Internally, only this mitochondria keeps on developing as the cell grows and it becomes a mature mitochondria, mature and fully developed mitochondria. So therefore, there is a growth which is happening in the mitochondria internally only. Now, the third one is the genetic information. Mitochondria possesses its own genetic information in the form of mitochondrial DNA. Fine. So this DNA is present in the mitochondria. Now this is independent of the DNA of the cell. So as we know that cell has the nucleus, yes, which carries its genetic material in the form of DNA. Yes. But this mitochondrial DNA is independent of the nucleus DNA or the nuclear DNA. Thereafter, there are ribosomes also which are present in the mitochondria, which is basically generally the ribosomes which are similar to prokaryotic ribosomes. 50s to 70s ribosomes. Now, mitochondria also produces various types of RNA inside it from the DNA. Different types of RNA like transfer RNA, ribosomal RNA, and structural RNA are produced inside the mitochondria from the DNA. Various structural proteins can also be produced inside the mitochondria. Now, since ribosomes are present, and we know ribosomes are responsible for the formation of proteins, so various structural proteins also can be formed inside the mitochondria with the help of ribosomes. Plus, it also helps in the formation of various enzymes. So enzymes like enzymes, cytochrome oxidase can be formed inside the mitochondrial matrix itself. So therefore we say that mitochondria has this autonomy. But then we have said it is semi-autonomous. Now why semi? Semi matlab not complete, it is semi-autonomous. Now it is semi-autonomous because mitochondria depends upon the cell nucleus and cytosol for its raw materials. And so therefore we call it as semi-autonomous because the raw materials are being obtained from the cytosol only. Therefore we call it as semi-autonomous. Now coming to the functions of mitochondria. The first and foremost is aerobic respiration. Now, mitochondria is responsible for the aerobic respiration, which is performed in mitochondria as Krebs cycle or tricarboxylic acid cycle. It is also called as the tricarboxylic acid cycle for aerobic respiration. All right. Now, secondly, as we have seen, it is also called as the powerhouse of the cell because it produces ATP. Energy is being produced in the form of ATP and that is being utilized by the cell to perform its various functions. Mitochondria also stores and releases calcium. It is also a site for the synthesis of fatty acids. Many of the fatty acids are synthesized in the matrix of mitochondria because the matrix possesses the enzymes which are responsible for the synthesis of fatty acids inside mitochondria. So these are the important functions of mitochondria. If you have liked our video, please subscribe the channel, share it with your friends, and if you have any question, you can write in the comment section and ask us. Thank you.